cold rain slicked the concrete at Naval Station Norfolk, turning the ground into dull gray glass beneath harsh white floodlights. Boots moved through it in sharp official rhythms, each step echoing off steel walls. The air smelled like metal, wet canvas, and late-night fatigue. Talia crossed the open space with a plain duffel on her shoulder and a sealed folder pressed to her side. She didn't hurry. She didn't hesitate. Her pace was steady, like she had learned that anything else invited attention. A security team stepped into her path. The youngest sailor scanned her credential, frowned, then smirked. "You're not in the system," he said, loud enough for others to hear. A few phones lifted halfway. Someone snorted. Quiet laughter rippled, then softened into uneasy whispers. A loose circle formed without anyone admitting they were watching. Major Kane arrived fast, coat still wet, confidence already sharp in his eyes. He spoke like the verdict was old news, like she had been solved before she ever opened her mouth. Talia didn't argue. She didn't explain. She lifted her hands and calmly offered her wrists, as if choosing this. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to FOB Veteran Stories. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from today? The interrogation room hummed with fluorescent light, a thin, constant buzz that sank into the bones. Water darkened the metal cuffs around Talia's wrists, and her hair, still damp from the rain, was pinned back with careful precision. She sat straight, shoulders loose, chin level, as if posture itself were a promise she refused to break. Major Kane took the chair across from her without asking. He placed his folder on the table, squared it, then adjusted it again, like he needed the order. His boots were dry. His expression wasn't. "Your story is impossible," he said calmly. "And that tattoo?" His eyes flicked to the faded ink on her wrist. "Cute theater." Talia didn't react. Outwardly, she was still. Inwardly, she was cataloging 2 exits. One behind Kane, one down the hall. 3 cameras, one angled wrong. A vent that hummed louder than it should. The faint rattle of keys at the guard's belt outside the door. The rhythm of her own breathing, slow and even. She counted the drips from the ceiling vent as they fell into a shallow tray. 1, 2, 3. It was a habit, one she'd never been able to shake. Counting kept her anchored. Counting kept her from drifting backward. Kane leaned back. "You expect me to believe you were part of a classified joint operation that doesn't exist, with teammates who don't exist, and a record that was magically erased?" "For safety," she said. "For fiction," he replied. "On paper, she was nothing special. A logistics contractor with a bland resume, no rank, no decorations, no gaps dramatic enough to raise suspicion. Boring by design. Invisible on purpose." That was the point. Kane slid a photo across the table. It was a scan of her tattoo. Small. Worn at the edges. Placed where a sleeve could hide it. "You really thought this would work?" he asked. A little ink and a dramatic story. Her eyes didn't leave the image. Fragments rose uninvited, a night overseas where the wind carried every sound too far. Luke's voice in her ear, teasing, steady, alive. Then the explosion that swallowed it. The radio crackling with too many voices. The weight of Donovan's vest in her hands. The way Santos shouted from across the river, his voice cutting through smoke and water. She had made the call. She would always live with it. Kane watched her face, waiting for emotion. Waiting for performance. None came. "You were on that mission with your brother," he said. "You lived." He didn't. Her fingers tightened once, barely. "And Donovan," he added. "You chose him." She swallowed, slow. She didn't deny it. Her mind went to the paperwork that followed, the interviews that never ended. The quiet meeting where they told her her name would disappear and that it was the safest thing they could do for her. Erased wasn't punishment. It was protection. Her entire history folded into a program that didn't officially exist. No official chain, no visible command, no way to be recognized. Kane scoffed. Real soldiers don't vanish. Some of us do, she said. He stood and paced, circling the table like he was trying to catch her from an angle. You want me to believe you were important enough to erase, but not important enough to keep. She looked up at him then. I was kept, she said, by being forgotten. A young guard shifted near the door. He had been standing there too long, pretending not to listen. When he brought her a cup of water, his hand shook. Thank you, Talia said. Not softly, not loudly, just clearly. The words landed like she was thanking him for more than water. Kane noticed. You think politeness makes you convincing? He asked. No, she replied. I think it makes me human. He didn't answer. He asked about her training, her units, her chain of command, each question shaped like a trap. Each pause meant to unnerve. She answered simply, sometimes with precision, sometimes with silence. Her gaze never begged. It never performed. It measured. When Kane mentioned Luke's name again, it was careless this time. He didn't mean to, but he did. Her eyes flicked. That was all. Her brother's face rose in her mind, not from the battlefield, but from a kitchen table years ago, arguing about coffee. The memory hurt worse than any explosion. She counted the drips again. 1, 2, 3. What's your job now? Kane asked. Logistics, she said. He laughed. Figures. On paper, she moved crates, filed forms, organized shipments. She never stayed long enough to be remembered. That was the agreement. Do you have any idea how this looks? He asked. She nodded. She always did when people said that. Kane leaned forward. You're asking me to ignore every rule I live by. I'm asking you to listen, she said. Silence settled between them. Outside, voices murmured. Word had spread. Curiosity moved faster than truth. She could hear the shift in the hallway, laughter fading into whispers. She leaned forward a fraction. The cuffs clinked softly. If you keep me here, she said, calm and exact, someone else will die out there. The words weren't dramatic. They were a clock. Kane opened his laptop and turned the screen so she could see. He scrolled slowly, highlighting blank spaces where records should have been. Gaps where medals would have sat. Lines that ended too neatly. Absence is proof, he said. No history. No service. No rank. You're a civilian thrill seeker who forged credentials to feel important. Talia looked at the screen, then back at him. What would you do, he asked, if you were really what you claim? She didn't answer right away. She listened to the building. The air vents. The voices. The quiet panic moving somewhere far from this room. Then she met his eyes. I'd be here, she said, exactly where I am. Kane didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He turned his laptop toward her and let the glow of the screen do the talking. Lines of data scrolled past, neat and color-coded. Names. Dates. Blank spaces where entire careers should have been. He tapped a key and enlarged one column, then another, then another. See this? He said. No service record. No deployment history. No commendations. No disciplinary marks. Nothing. He leaned back. That kind of emptiness doesn't happen by accident. Talia studied the screen. It looked exactly the way it was supposed to. You're a civilian thrill seeker, Kane continued. Someone who forged credentials to feel important. People do it all the time. They want to belong to something bigger than they are. She didn't respond. Don't get me wrong, he said. It's sad, but it's not heroic. She blinked once. Inside, her mind was far away, standing on a beach she had never been able to forget. Cold water up to her knees. A countdown in her ear. Luke's voice steady and joking like he was trying to make her laugh. Kane mistook her silence for weakness. So, he said, let's see how deep your fantasy goes. He straightened in his chair, folded his hands, and began. If you were real, you'd know the safe window for cold water immersion before fine motor function degrades beyond recovery. 10 minutes, Talia said. Less if the wind is strong. Kane blinked. And what do you do after? He asked quickly. Rewarm from the core out. Don't rub extremities. Watch for afterdrop. He stared at her. Range safety, he said. Say you're running a live fire with mixed experience levels. What's the first phrase you correct? Finger discipline, she said. Before stance. Before breathing. Kane's jaw tightened. Insertion prep rituals. He tried again. Tell me one. She exhaled. We always checked our radios last. Not because they were last priority. Because if everything else failed, we needed them to work. He shifted. Radio brevity, he said. Different units, different language. What's the difference between an abort and a scrub? Her eyes lifted. Abort is immediate. Scrub is strategic. One is survival. One is planning. Silence filled the room. Kane's confidence cracked, just a hairline fracture. He closed the laptop halfway, then opened it again. Lucky guesses, he said. She didn't correct him. Outside the room, footsteps slowed. Someone glanced through the glass, then did a double take. A petty officer walking past stopped, peered in, and laughed. Another fake hero, he muttered, not quietly. A couple of junior personnel lingered near the door, pretending to check their phones. Whispers traveled. Smirks followed. Talia could feel the room filling with invisible people. Kane noticed. This is what happens, he said, when you pretend to be something you're not. She didn't look at the door. She kept her eyes on him. Cold water procedure if a teammate starts to seize, he pressed. Secure airway, she said. Get them out of the water. Warm slowly, no sudden movement. And if you're under fire, then you decide what kind of person you are. The whispers softened. What would you have done in that room? A quiet thought seemed to float between them, with everyone waiting for you to crack. Talia wondered if anyone in the hallway had ever been truly invisible before, not ignored. Erased. Kane leaned forward. You're not fooling anyone. She met his eyes. You're trying to make me. A laugh sounded from outside. Then another. Then it stopped. The mood shifted. Kane tried again. Harder. That tattoo, he said. Stolen. That posture. Copied. You've studied real warriors like costumes. Something flickered in her eyes. Not anger. Grief. Like he had stepped on a grave. She remembered the medic who had inked that mark with shaking hands because he promised himself he would never forget that night. She remembered Luke laughing, saying it looked terrible. Kane mistook her silence again. Real war doesn't need imposters, he said. It doesn't need cosplay. She looked down at her hands. Not in shame, in memory. A phone rang. Kane checked it, annoyed, and stepped out. The door closed. Talia listened. Her heart didn't race, her mind did. She could feel the timeline slipping. Whatever she had come here to stop was moving without her. When Kane returned, he was different, sharper, guarded. Someone had asked him a question he didn't like. What did they say? She asked. He didn't answer. He sat, eyes searching her face like it was a map he didn't trust. What would you do, he said, if you were really what you claim? She leaned forward. The cuffs chimed softly. I'd ask you to stop pretending your screen is reality, she said. He laughed, but it wasn't kind. Reality is what I can prove. Reality is what happens when you're wrong, she replied. Silence followed. She could hear the hallway again. More people, fewer jokes, more listening. The room felt smaller. Kane closed his laptop. You want me to bring in a colonel? He asked. A general? She shook her head. Bring someone with real clearance, she said. not someone with a keyboard. The words sounded insane. That was why they worked. Kane stared at her. Who? He asked. Someone who knows what erased looks like, she said. Kane studied her in a new way now, not like a problem to be solved, but like a surface that refused to give him the answers he wanted. His eyes drifted back to her wrist. The tattoo wasn't what he expected. It wasn't loud, it wasn't a trident or a skull or anything that screamed for attention. It was small, faded at the edges, the kind of mark time softened instead of sharpening, placed just far enough up her arm that a sleeve could hide it. He leaned forward, squinting. What is that supposed to be? He asked. A memory, she said. It wasn't a single image. It was a symbol, then a string of coordinates, then a date with no year attached. Incomplete. Unfinished. Like a sentence that only made sense to someone who already knew the ending. Kane frowned. Coordinates of what? She didn't answer. He watched her more closely now. When a door opened somewhere down the hall, her head turned before the sound of footsteps reached the room. Not sharply. Just enough. When the guard outside shifted his weight toward his sidearm, her hands moved an inch on the table. Not threatening. Just ready. It wasn't conscious. It was muscle memory. You're very alert for someone who claims to be a contractor, Kane said. She didn't respond. He decided to try something. You SEAL types, he said, deliberately casual, deliberately wrong, always think you're special. Her eyes flicked to him. Team, she said quietly. What? Not types, teams. It was a tiny correction. A nuance most people wouldn't care about. Most people wouldn't even notice. Then she went silent again. Kane sat back. He had interrogated real liars before. They talked too much. They filled silence with stories. They decorated themselves with details. Talia did the opposite. He tapped his pen once. Let's see what you brought. He gestured to the duffel. The guard hesitated, then stepped forward and unzipped it. Inside were ordinary items. Clothes. Toiletries. A notebook. But everything was placed with unnatural precision, like it had been packed and repacked until it followed a pattern only she understood. The guard lifted out a sealed packet with no return address. What's this? Kane asked. Not for you, she said. He ignored her. There was a small medical kit beneath it, worn, edges softened, tape marks layered over each other like scars. It looked like it had been rebuilt, not replaced. Used. Fixed. Used again. Kane picked it up, opened it. Why does a logistics contractor carry field sutures? He asked. She didn't answer. The guard reached deeper into the bag and froze. He pulled out a laminated photograph. It was old. Corners rounded. The plastic clouded. A man in uniform stared back, smiling, his arms slung around someone just out of frame. He had kind eyes. Not heroic eyes, human ones. Kane took the photo. Who is this? Talia's throat moved. Once. My brother, she said. Kane studied the picture. What was his name? Luke. He waited for more. She didn't give it. Outside, the hallway had grown quieter. No more laughter. No more murmurs. Just the low hum of a building holding its breath. A junior officer stepped in, pale. Sir, he said to Kane, you're needed. Kane waved him off. Later. No, sir, the officer said. Now. Kane looked irritated. The officer swallowed. Admiral Harrington is on base. The words hit the room like a dropped plate. He asked for the detainee, the officer continued. By description. Silence followed. Kane's confidence stalled. He stared at the young officer, then at Talia, then back at the photo, then at the tattoo. His certainty began to wobble. Not collapse. Wobble. Because, for the first time, the possibility crossed his mind that his screen, his records, his rules might not be the whole world, and that the woman sitting in front of him might be something his system had never been built to recognize. His jaw tightened. Talia met his eyes. Not defiant, just steady. Kane closed the laptop slowly, and for the first time since she had been brought in, he didn't know what he was looking at anymore. The door opened without announcement. No flourish. No raised voices. Just the sound of a latch and a change in the air. Every spine in the room straightened, not from command, from instinct. Admiral Harrington stepped inside like he belonged everywhere he went, not because of rank, but because of gravity. His uniform was crisp, his face weathered, his eyes quiet and sharp. He didn't look at Kane first. He looked at Talia, at the cuffs, at the rain still darkening her sleeves. Kane cleared his throat. "Sir, this woman is impersonating." Harrington lifted one hand, not a command. A pause. His gaze moved slowly, deliberately, as if he were reading something that wasn't written down. He took in the room, the posture of the guards, the placement of chairs, the way Talia sat with stillness that wasn't fear. Then his eyes dropped. To her wrist. To the tattoo. It wasn't obvious. Most people wouldn't have noticed. It was faded. Subtle. Almost apologetic. Harrington did. His face didn't change much. Just a fraction. Like someone hearing a name they hadn't heard in years. He stepped closer. Not threatening. Not gentle. Just present. "What year did the water freeze?" he asked quietly. Kane blinked. "Sir?" Talia lifted her eyes. "Second night," she said. Harrington's breathing stopped for half a second. No one else in the room understood the exchange. But something shifted. He looked at Kane. "Leave us." Kane hesitated. "Sir, she's a civilian." "Leave," Harrington repeated. Kane obeyed. The guard stepped out too, slower now. When the door closed, Harrington reached out and touched the cuffs. Not to remove them. To test their reality. "They treat you like this often?" he asked. Talia didn't answer. He straightened. "I will not release you here," he said. She didn't flinch. "This room has too many ears," he continued. "And too many eyes that don't know what they're looking at." She waited. "Building 7, he said. "Late. You will be escorted." "You will not speak to anyone." She nodded. "And Major Kane," he added. "Will not mention this." She tilted her head. "You think he'll listen?" Harrington's mouth twitched. "He will." He turned away, not with certainty. With intention. Building 7 didn't exist on most maps. It was a low structure tucked behind maintenance warehouses, painted the same dull color as the rest of the base, meant to look forgettable. Inside, it was anything but. Reyes was waiting. He didn't introduce himself. He threw a scenario at her. "You have 3 wounded," he said. "1 with arterial bleed, 1 with airway compromised, 1 in shock. You have 90 seconds. She didn't think. She answered. "Airway first. Bleeding second. Shock stabilized last." He blinked. "What if the bleed is massive?" "Still airway," she said. "Dead lungs don't care about blood." He stared. He threw another. She answered. No ego. No explanation. Just truth. Webb stepped in next. He didn't bring a rifle. He brought a question. "You're on overwatch," he said. "There's a hostile and a kid behind him. You have a clear shot." She didn't respond immediately. "What do you do?" he pressed. "I don't take it," she said. "What if he kills someone?" "Then I live with that," she replied. "I won't live with the other thing." Webb studied her, then nodded. Cross was last. He didn't test her skills. He tested her soul. "I heard about Santos," he said. She stiffened. "I heard you left him." She met his eyes. "I chose Donovan," she said. "That's not what I asked." She swallowed. Yes, she said. I left Santos. The words didn't sound like defense. They sounded like confession. Cross waited for pride. None came. It haunts me, she continued. Every day. He leaned closer. Then why should we trust you? Because I will never do it again, she said. Not with confidence. With promise. Cross stepped back. Later, alone, he made the call. His hands shook. A voice on the other end whispered his daughter's name. He agreed. And hated himself. The team assembled. Not because she convinced them. Because she didn't try to. Talia stood among them. Not claiming. Not proving. Just ready. And when they moved out, it wasn't to save her name. It was to bring a man home alive. The hallway outside Building 7 was narrow and dim, lit by a single strip of pale light that hummed like it was tired of being awake. The team moved past in quiet efficiency, checking gear, speaking in low tones, minds already shifting toward what came next. Talia lingered a step behind. Harrington stopped. Not sharply. Just enough. Chief, he said. She turned. For a moment, they stood alone in the thin space between rooms, between moments, between names. He reached out, not quickly. Not uncertainly. He took her wrist. Not in restraint, in reverence. His fingers brushed the faded ink, gentle, precise, like someone touching a folded flag before a burial. The tattoo had always been hers alone. No one had ever touched it like that. Grid 4-2, he said quietly. Ridgeline east of the river. Freezing fog. No moon. Her breath caught. That rescue never made the news, he continued. They said it failed. She didn't move. They said everyone died. His eyes met hers. But you didn't. 2 words sat between them, heavy and unspoken. You lived. And you carried the others out, he added, one at a time. Even when it cost you. Her jaw tightened. That mark, he said, tapping the ink lightly, isn't decoration. It's not identity. It's memory. He released her wrist. Only survivors wear it like that. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Behind them, Cross had slowed, not on purpose. He had caught the words, the tone, the weight in Harrington's voice. Not curiosity, not doubt. Respect. The kind that comes from fear and gratitude. Webb stood frozen, his face unreadable, but his eyes had changed. He had heard commanders speak like that before, only when they were talking about people who had done things no one should ever have to do. Kane stepped into the hallway, clipboard in hand, still playing the role of oversight. He stopped when he saw Harrington's posture. The way the Admiral stood. The way Talia stood in front of him. Not accused, not explained. Recognized. Kane's mouth opened. Then closed. He finally understood that what he had been interrogating was not a liar. It was a ghost. From the real war. The one no system could record. The one paperwork could never touch. Harrington straightened. The hallway felt smaller. Not with pressure. With meaning. He looked at Talia, then at the others. His voice was low. Not loud. Not dramatic. Final. Nightjar is who she says she is. The wind off the coast cut like glass. It pushed against them in hard, invisible hands as they moved through the abandoned safe site, boots sinking into wet sand, gear rattling softly. The ocean roared somewhere beyond the dunes, a low, endless sound that made everything else feel small. Talia took point, her movement steady, precise, like a metronome, not rushed. Not slow, just exact. They found Santos in a back room, slumped against a wall, his hands blue with cold, his eyes unfocused but alive. Barely. Reyes was on him instantly. "Stay with me," he muttered, working fast, fingers moving with quiet urgency. Talia didn't hover. She widened her perimeter, checked corners, counted exits, listened for the wrong sounds. Every few seconds, her eyes flicked back to Santos, then out again. Alive mattered. The roar of engines reached them too soon. Talia felt it before she heard it. "They're early," she said. No one argued. She knew what that meant. She turned to Cross. His face had gone gray. "My breadcrumb," he said. The words broke. They used it. The truth hit like a punch. He dropped his weapon. "I'll take it," he said. "Whatever you want. Just don't." Talia didn't raise her voice. "Pick it up." He stared. "You don't get punished right now," she continued. "You get useful." She pointed toward the narrow alley that led to the riverbank. "You're first." He swallowed. Then nodded. They moved. The river was wider than it looked. Dark. Fast. Cold bit through boots in seconds. Talia went in first, testing the current, bracing. Santos faltered halfway, his legs giving out. Reyes swore. Talia didn't. She lifted him, one arm under his shoulders, the other gripping his vest, her teeth clenched as the water dragged at them. Not heroic. Necessary. She felt his weight shift, felt his breath stutter. "Don't," she said quietly. "Not here." They made it across. Barely. Gunfire snapped behind them. Cross stumbled, then screamed. He went down. "I'm hit," he gasped. "Leave me." Talia turned. He was bleeding. "Bad. They're coming," he said. "You have him. Go." She didn't move. Not because he deserved it, because she refused to become the kind of person who left anyone behind. She hauled him up, dragging him with her, every step a decision. Bullets hit water. Reyes covered. Webb fired, controlled, restrained. They reached the extraction zone, soaked, shaking, alive. Helicopter rotors thundered overhead. Santos was loaded first, then Cross. Talia stood in the cold, her clothes plastered to her, hair loose, eyes still scanning even as her hands trembled. Footsteps approached. Not hurried. Measured. She turned. Harrington stood there. No escort. No ceremony. Just presence. He looked at her. Really looked. Then he raised his hand. And saluted. Not for cameras. Not for rank. For truth. The entire zone fell silent. Not applause. Not cheers. Just quiet. The kind that feels like prayer. Santos was evacuated before the sun broke the horizon. Wrapped in thermal blankets, hooked to steady machines, breathing on his own. Not strong. Not healed. But alive. That was enough. Talia watched the stretcher disappear into the aircraft, her hands still trembling from cold and adrenaline. She didn't follow it with her eyes for long. She never did. Staying meant believing. Cross was taken into custody quietly. No spectacle. No shouting. He didn't resist. He looked smaller without his weapon, without his role, like a man who had run out of places to hide. When the guards moved to take him, Talia stepped forward. "He gets one thing," she said. The guards hesitated. "To see his daughter," she continued. Before judgment, not after. No one argued. Kane stood nearby, clipboard clutched to his chest like a shield. He waited until the area thinned, until he wasn't being watched. Then he approached her. "I was wrong," he said. It came out stiff. Practiced. But not empty. She studied him for a second. Not with anger. With tiredness. "The system isn't evil," she said. "It's just blind in the wrong places." He nodded slowly, like that sentence had landed somewhere deeper than his pride. Harrington found her near the edge of the tarmac. Not in front of anyone. Not for show. "They're going to come for me," he said. She didn't ask who. Investigations. Hearings. Forced retirement. He smiled once, thin and honest. End of a long career. She waited. "I did it anyway," he added. "Because leadership isn't about staying comfortable." She nodded. They stood there in silence, listening to the distant chop of rotors and the low murmur of voices moving back into routine. When the press arrived, they asked for her. She declined. When medals were mentioned, she declined. When interviews were suggested, she declined. She didn't want a spotlight. She wanted quiet. She wanted the mission done. She wanted the living returned. Later, when the base had settled and the night folded back into itself, she walked alone along the edge of the runway, hands in her pockets, breath still visible in the cold. No one followed. No one saluted. And that was exactly how she preferred it. Because honor, she had learned, was not a word someone else gave you. It wasn't a title. It wasn't a ceremony. It was what you did when no one was watching. Honor is not what people call you. Honor is what you do when nobody knows your name. There are stories that never make the news, names that never enter databases, faces that pass through airports and city streets without anyone knowing what they carried, what they gave up, or what they saved. Talia was one of those stories. Her record was erased. Her victories were quiet. Her scars were private. And the world would keep turning without ever knowing how close it came to losing something irreplaceable. Before dawn, she walked away from the base with her duffel on her shoulder. No ceremony, no applause. Just the soft sound of rain easing into mist, like the night itself was exhaling. She didn't look back. She never did. Somewhere, a man was alive because she refused to stop. Somewhere, a child would still have a father. Somewhere, a line had been held that no one would ever write about. And maybe that is what real courage looks like. Quiet, unrecorded, unseen. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe for more FOB veteran stories. These stories keep the courage alive for generations to come.